So here's something different for you. Different in the sense that here on this channel, I'm usually messing around with carburetors and jets and blah blah. Today, we embrace the future. I just want to clarify that this was actually shot back in February. Let's talk about ECU tuning. An ECU and all of the sensors feeding it is kind of an amazing thing. I mean, it could take variables such as engine temp, air temp, altitude, etc., and turn them into parameters that dictate what the most optimal running condition in most situations is. So if you take a stock fuel injected bike and put it in different situations, it will adjust and run totally fine. The reason why people say you need to tune your bike after installing something as drastic as a full exhaust and high flow intake is because the closed system characteristics are too far out of what the computer is able to compensate for on the stock tune. So you recall the mods that I made to my bike. In line with those mods, I have to drop a more fitting tune onto this ECU. The great part about Triumphs, and even with all the crap that I give this bike for its goofy ECU stuff, but yeah, the great part is that you can tune Triumphs via phone, even back to like early 2000s bikes. I'm talking like bikes from 2002 and whatnot. And this website, it looks like it's from 2002, but I like that. It makes me feel nostalgic. And to be honest, all of the info that you could really possibly need on the subject is on here. As of now, it's only available on Android devices, so sorry iPhonies. And for that matter, sorry literally Windows users as well. So download the software on your Android, install it, and run it. You get basic functionality without a license, meaning you can kind of explore the app and stuff, see if you really want it, but you have to actually buy a license and register your bike if you want to actually make changes to the tune. The cool thing is that there's already maps preloaded that you could pick from to best match your setup. You don't have to be a genius or have access to a dyno. You can make your own custom map, yes, but unless you really know what you're doing, I would stick to the pre-made ones. So it's under download where you select your brand, bike, and the tune that you want to run. These are actually Triumph made tunes that would be installed at dealers depending on how the bike was equipped. The one we want is the 20529 map. That's the map that was meant to be run with either an Aero high mount system or the Tours high mount system. Tours being short for Triumph off-road system. So the Tours are sort of like Aeros, but if you wanted to keep the stock look, think of it like that. They look identical to the stock cans. I have Delcovic cans, yes, but it's the same concept. You also notice that it says with secondary air injection, which is the system that, where fresh air gets routed into the exhaust headers to ignite any unburnt fuel, just for emission stuff. It's kind of the reason why you get that bloopy burble out the back when engine braking. Finally, it has a higher octane rating than the original tune, allowing for better performance if you live in an area with high quality fuel available. When running pre-made maps, it's all about getting as close as you possibly can to your setup. So this is the visual representation of the map, but we will come back to that. Just give me a second. It's time to connect the bike up to my phone. There's 3 steps you need to take when flashing the ECU. Connect the bike to the battery tender so it doesn't die, while you're doing some crazy stuff with the ECU. That would be pretty bad. Remove the headlight fuse so the voltage stays at the, the optimal level. Then use a USB to Type-C adapter for your phone. And then you plug the old VAG cable into the bike's OBD interface plug. It will eventually connect and show you a voltage with a green light blinking at the bottom right, but then it'll say unregistered bike, so we gotta register it. What a concept. Once that's done, you're ready to go. From there, you can test different components like the dash display, the fan, the fuel pump, etc. You can change the idle speed, reset your adaptations that your ECU has made, to adapt to your riding style, view a bunch of different sensor readouts, and I mean a bunch. Like, how cool is that? You can change up the rev limit a little bit here and there if you want, the temperature that the fan kicks on, and if you make sprocket changes, which I know a lot about, that will throw off the speedo, you can actually compensate in either direction to make the speedo accurate again. There's also a bunch of different sort of display formats that read out real-time information. So this is about the extent of the functionality for, a bike of my vintage. Okay, so for the actual task, it's best to let the program read and copy the tune already loaded onto the ECU. After it warns you about the fuse and the charger, which we've already taken care of, it'll show you what tune is loaded onto the bike as is by name. So mine had the 20 533 tune. And remember that's production or stock exhaust with the AIS intact running on regular grade fuel. Literally the bare bones stock tune, which makes sense. Then you just grab the tune that you actually want to run and you load it onto the ECU. You also use that function that resets all engine adaptations. It takes about another 20 minutes to do, so just leave the bike alone. Once done, come back, cycle the ignition a few times, then just let it idle. Then when you ride as you typically would, so your ECU can adapt to it. And we'll go on a ride in a sec. But I just want to quickly discuss what these graphs mean. And I did an Instagram write-up that same day, so I'm just kind of I'm going to base it on that because it was pretty good. So on these graphs, the x-axis is a throttle position from 0 to 100%. The right side is full throttle, the left side is 0. The y-axis is the RPM amount, and RPM is represented as the usual number that you would recognize. In this case, the red line is 9,450 RPM at the top. The numbers within the graph simply, they represent the level of fueling provided at a specific RPM and throttle. So don't focus on any units per se. Just understand that the higher the number, the more fuel, and vice versa. With that said, I chopped the maps in half visually to make them easy to look at for you. This represents half to full throttle, from left to right, and idle to red line from bottom to top. Here's the stock map and here's the new map. And to make the comparison even simpler, I chopped the maps down to only full throttle for visual, for visual clarity. So the left represents that scenario on the stock tune, and the right represents it on the aero tune. As my comments mentioned, from 1400 RPM, you can see the changes. There was a bit of a slump in power that I felt using mods without the tune between 2,000 and 3,000 RPM, but that got fixed. So that happens, and then the numbers go back to the same values as the stock tune from 3,600 RPM to 6,500 RPM. And as you approach the top end, you get a really, really nice bump in power with peak values even hitting, 5 digits. You got some 10,000 numbers there. You really do feel that in practice, trust me. As you really get close to red line, the ECU is set to pull power to make the rev limiter slam, like as you slam against the rev limiter, to make it less jarring for both you and, the engine. So yeah, I hope that makes literally any sort of sense. Let's go for a ride. I'll let it play out undisturbed, and I'll just say right now that the top end is straight up crazy, which means that the front end needs a damper now more than ever. The low end dead spot, it got erased, so it's harder to lug this bike now that the tune matches the mods that I did. And the big, loud, crazy pops and bangs, those are gone, but the burble is still around due to the SAI system still being intact. Have a look. is so good, and now it's even better. Anyway, here's a little bonus clip because I also changed my headlight bulbs to LEDs from halogens. I managed to find LED bulbs that don't need like a ballast and a fan and like other stuff, which I'm not opposed to, but there's not much space inside of these buckets for those things. These LEDs will give that blue hue that LEDs give versus that yellow one that halogens give, and it'll help modernize the bike and also just straight up reduce heat. Just take a look. I don't really need to narrate a bulb change, right? So yeah, just let the video ride out. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.